And I would like to move on to the last presentation of this morning, which will be given by Anne-Marie Davis, professor at the Ohio State University Libraries, and also Japanese Studies librarian. Ms. Katherine Matsuura from Harvard University, Japan, Digital Scholarship Librarian, and Yukari Sugiyama from Yale University Library. She is librarian for discovery and metadata assessment. Their joint presentation is titled Opportunities for Global Collaboration in Collection Discovery, the Notable Japanese Collections Dashboard Project. The floor is yours.
Just before we get started, thank you so much. I feel like the hospitality has been really wonderful and the organizing of this conference has been very generous. So we're really so thrilled to see you all. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and start reading. So in our presentation today, entitled Opportunities for Global Collaboration in Collection Discovery, we will focus on a project that we started several years ago during the pandemic called the Notable Japanese Collections Dashboard, or NJC, a digital project and database that aims to map all notable Japanese collections in North America. So before going into detail about the dashboard itself, we'll first provide some background information about the project. As this slide here suggests, and the members of our team before you, we're a team consisting of three. Importantly, we'd like to emphasize that we are each resource specialists who bring together different professional roles and expertises in research librarianship and Japan studies librarianship. My colleague, Yukari Sugiyama, for example, is an e-resources discovery librarian at Yale University, and Katherine Matsuura is the Japan Digital Scholarship Librarian at Harvard University, and I am a Japanese Studies librarian at The Ohio State University. Originally, we began thinking about this project, I think I mentioned in 2020 during the pandemic, when we were serving on a digital resources committee together with the North American Council on Japanese Library Resources, or NCC, as represented by the acronym in the second line of this slide. And based on our interests in digital scholarship and collection discovery, the three of us formed a subgroup to explore the development of our online tool to help researchers and librarians to more easily discover rare or distinctive collections at universities and other repositories across North America. As our project has gotten off the ground, we have continued to work together, and we are now a working group that focuses specifically on the long-term sustainability and development of our project. So from its inception, these were the goals of our project. Firstly, we wanted to develop an interactive tool, or as it's called, a dashboard with ideally, as we work together moving into the future, a comprehensive list of notable collections. And ideally, we wanted to present this list visually on a digital map of North America. Additionally, we wanted to create a searchable database for our users who we envision to be librarians and scholars who need to identify appropriate materials for their scholarship, teaching, and outreach. And lastly, we wanted to leverage the projects and data that had already been collected by others in our field. We understood early on into our project that many of our colleagues had already begun creating similar lists or bibliographies of collections in North America. In particular, we were aware that our colleagues in the NCC working group on collaborative collection development had been conducting an online survey since 2018 and had already gathered information about dozens of notable collections. So what we did to begin with was to propose to this committee that we activate their work by building a dashboard that brought added visibility to their survey and that also would inspire more submissions. So during our brainstorming phase, we were actively discussing other projects that served as inspirations or as potential models that we could take from or reject, depending on what our capacities were and our time availability. But these are 3 examples that we referenced quite frequently when thinking about our own vision to fill this gap in library and digital resource services in North America. First and foremost among the models we were looking at was the digital collections for Chinese studies, developed by Dr. Ann James, the data services librarian at George Washington University, and Dr. He Yan, the current head of the Chinese section at Cambridge University Library. A clear difference between this model and ours, of course, is that this online map and database focuses primarily on Chinese resources. Ours is on Japan. In addition, this model is hosted on ArcGIS Online, which is a subscription-based platform, or it requires startup funds or membership through a university or an institution and an institutional account through one of our universities. Another major difference between this project and ours is that it lists fully digitized collections only, while ours has come to also include non-digitized and partially digitized collections. In addition to the DCCS, we also reflected on the example of the Directory of Overseas Collections of Old and Rare Japanese Books, other print materials and manuscripts, which was developed well over a decade ago by colleagues in the Council on East Asian Libraries, or CEAL, which is, in this database has come to be maintained in Japan and hosted in Japan by the Institute of Japanese Literature. The major differences between this project and ours is that it lists collections held worldwide at major research institutions and museums. And while offering a tremendous amount of detail, it lacks that dashboard component, which I mentioned earlier, so therefore does not chart the collections geographically. But it also offers very detailed collection overviews, while it doesn't have the search functions that we have added to ours, allowing discovery of collections based on themes, formats, time periods, and other criteria, which my colleagues will demonstrate in a moment. Finally, as a very ideal model, we considered the Japan Search Database created by the National Diet Library in Japan. But in this final example, in marked contrast to our own project, which had no budget to speak of and was created by 3 volunteers, this database is the product of major government funding and policymaking at a national level. Also, in contrast to the Japan Search Database, our own project would not offer a portal for viewing individual images, online galleries, or databases. Instead, our database is searchable with textual details, and it offers information at a collection level. Finally, our project is different from some of the others in that our goal is to connect users with legacy materials held at repositories that are both large, and also we are focusing on small institutions, colleges, and research libraries where Japan specialists are not necessarily available or representing or advocating for such local and regional collections. Ultimately, after we got our dashboard up and going, launched, we began to observe other projects outside of Japanese studies that seem most comparable to our own. Most notably, we have found that the Jewish Collection Directory, administered by the Association of Jewish Libraries, or AJL, resembles ours in a number of critical ways. First, the Jewish Collection Project charts both well-known and lesser-known Judaica collections, albeit around the world and not just in North America. Additionally, like ours, the Jewish Collection provides an interactive geographic interface using open source software. In this case, it uses Google My Maps. And lastly, like ours, it is the product of countless hours of volunteer work Similar to our own organization, the NCC, the AJL is a nonprofit group that offers its services through energetic and voluntary work of its associated members.
Hi, everyone. So you must be wondering what our project looks like. So I'm going to give you a brief tour of the dashboard. The actual URL is really hard to remember, so you can simply visit the dashboard by this tiny URL link or by Googling notable Japanese collections in North America. This site is built on Google Looker Studio. It's a free interactive data visualization tool by Google. When you hover your cursor over a red marker, a tooltip with the corresponding institution name, physical address, and related collections will appear. You may notice some red markers are darker. These are areas where red markers overlap themselves. Yeah, so please be sure to zoom in and enlarge these areas for full discoverability. Next slide. Collection overview provides quick data visualization of the type of library collections that are listed in the database. We have 219 collections so far. These collections can be filtered by, can you put next slide? Language, data access, formats, and time period. To clear all filters, use the reset button. Next slide. The Browse Collections page expands on the detail of the collections and allow you to filter and search the content. Keyword search can be conducted in English, Japanese, Romanized Japanese, or basically any combination. Your search will be normalized, so don't worry about the use of lowercase letters, uppercase letters, or macrons. We have added this featured special topics filter early this year, which Kathy will explain later. Again, please use the reset button to clear all filters or searches. Next. The directory page provides contact information for the participating holding institutions, which are listed alphabetically here. The About page includes background information about this project, instructions on how to use this dashboard, acknowledgement, and contact information. So one of our most ambitious goals with this project has been to build a database that is as comprehensive as possible. And as Anne-Marie mentioned before, our colleagues in NCC had given us a head start by conducting a survey that dated several years back. So in addition to incorporating their dataset as the basis for our dashboard, we also partner with them by modifying and incorporating their Google form into our workflow. The link to the Google form is available at every page of the site. So by clicking this submit data button, user will reach that Google form, which prompt them to suggest additional collections, large or small, at their home institutions or other institutions. As you see, we have a Google heavy workflow with Google Forms, Google Sheets, and Google Looker Studio. All of them are free of charge to anyone with a Google account. Sorry, I'm blanking myself. Google Looker Studio was the right platform for us, not only due to its easy startup costs, but also for its ubiquitous sync, edit, share features. In addition, since these Google products are all synced together, our workflow is largely automated, making this project efficient and sustainable. The information collected through this Google form loads automatically onto a Google Sheet. Another separate Google Sheet then pulls and organizes selected data from that response spreadsheet, serving as a data source for this dashboard. As a final plus, the web traffic to our dashboard is tracked by another Google product, Google Analytics, to measure how anonymous users interact with this site. By the way, we are happy to tell you that our dashboard is now embeddable. Several libraries kindly mentioned and promoted this dashboard as a helpful resource in their subject guides. If you are interested, you can embed this dashboard on your page. To do so, click on the share button and select embed report. You can copy the code and paste it within your page. If you want to see an example, visit our project page in the NCC site. Our dashboard is embedded there. Inevitably, every tool and platform has limitations, and every project must work within the boundary of staff time. Here are some issues and challenges we have. Some text in the pages are really small and hard to read. Unfortunately, we are not able to make them bigger. This dashboard relies on a couple of third-party visualization components to function. And when users interact with the dashboard, alert boxes sometimes open with a warning not to share password or any sensitive information. The component we use don't even have a data input option, so there should be no problem, but still users have to provide consent for third-party visualization before seeing it. Issues are not just on the front end, but also on the back end. Google Looker Studio, unfortunately, lacks some critical HTML elements and attributes that support users with disabilities. Because of that and poor HTML structure, some pages are hard to use for keyboard-only users and screen reader users. Since we are not able to edit the underlying HTML code directly, we cannot address these accessibility flows. And lastly, we have a slow intake of new collections. To tackle this, we started offering a service to add collections on librarians' behalf. While we had some successes, it is still challenging. We know everybody, ourselves included, is really busy. So next, Kathy will talk about the outcomes and next steps.
Yes, the project was launched on February 16, 2022, nearly 1 year and 7 months ago to the day. Since last year's launch, the number of collections has more than doubled. We've moved from 93 collections to 212 collections, and these materials are from libraries both large and small across North America. The dashboard has been visited more than 1,800 times from 26 countries since its launch. The United States has the highest proportion of users, followed by Japan, Canada, the United Kingdom, Hong Kong, Ireland, and Sweden. Over the past year, my colleagues and I have pursued various forms of outreach, such as articles and conference presentations, in an effort to both enlarge this project and generate public awareness. This is our first attempt to reach a larger European audience, and we are beginning to think more broadly about global outreach and collaboration. While this project is destined to evolve, our goal is to continually refine, improve, and think more deeply about our next steps and user constituencies. While everyone benefits from increased visibility of Japanese collections and the removal of institutional barriers for exploring and accessing some of the treasures that exist across North America, throughout this past year, we've also realized that usage of the dashboard can vary across different constituencies. Take, for example, a case in which a postdoc at Harvard was preparing to return home to Europe, but wanting to make a final trip to see the American West. But in particular, he was planning to make stops in Utah and Colorado and wanted to find out whether any university libraries held Japanese collections in those regions. A colleague ended up telling him about the notable Japanese collections in North America, and initially when I heard this, I was just happy to learn that the site was being used. But it didn't just end there. After the postdoc's travels, he came directly to my office and wanted to extend personal thanks for this tool. Apparently, he was able to find primary sources directly related to his research interests at Brigham Young University. He told me that the notable Japanese collections made his trip even better than he had expected. This is just one personal case that I encountered, but basically no student, no researcher has time to go to every university library catalog and explore the contents to see if there's a connection to Japan. If we as librarians can make the research experience a smoother one, then I think that is sufficient reason to grow and sustain this project. But it is not only students and researchers who benefit from this platform. Librarians as well have used the submission of their data as a means of rethinking what constitutes a collection, how to organize this information, and using this as an opportunity to revisit and assess their own institutional collections. In particular, there are a growing number of North American librarians who are fairly junior in the field and have inherited valuable collections in which they themselves may be the second, third, or fourth generation of caretakers. While some collections are very extensive and organizing the data for submission is not an easy task, we've seen a number of librarians take this on as a learning process to not only gain familiarity with their own collections, but to use the dashboard as a means of recognizing where other important collections are located, especially those without strong representation in NCC. Since the launch of the dashboard, our primary focus has been to attract submissions and expand the number of collections, particularly when possible through strategic collaborations. For instance, we recently partnered with an NCC working group, which has been actively building a list of research collections related to Japan's post-war occupation. In inviting this group to add their collection, we have in turn added modifications to the dashboard to highlight these important efforts. As you can see in this red box in the image here, there is now a drop-down filter of featured special topics on the Browse Collections page. And by clicking on the drop-down filter, you can see the successful addition of the post-war occupation list. Importantly, since adding this feature, we have received additional submissions connected to Japanese migration and have included diaspora and movement as our latest special topic. Our potential themes for future focus include missionary papers or other transnational collections, and we certainly welcome any suggestions you may have for us. Building on these modifications, we are pursuing additional strategies, including holding open office hours and inviting targeted colleagues to discuss ways to facilitate submissions and brainstorm strategies for pursuing avenues of growth. These target invitations make up a portion of our so-called cold calling strategies, which we typically pursue by email and sometimes by social media. In general, growing the collections is not a straightforward or simple process, and we need to approach it from multiple angles. Future outreach plans include occasional edit-a-thons, which will include invitations to join us as we work together to submit, edit, and improve the database through a focused and fun online event. For example, scheduling a date around a specific topic and or using an important event or holiday such as Japan's Constitution Memorial Day or Children's Day to focus on the intake of collections around special themes, as well as reaching out to submitting collection data connected to targeted repositories with special collections and historic papers, as well as smaller institutions that do not have dedicated East Asian Studies librarians. Eventually, we intend to make contact with collection managers at relevant museums as well. Any collections that are submitted by one of our team or any outside librarian will also be subject to an extra layer of attention. Using an email template, we will request verification from the host institution in order to confirm that the information we've included is accurate and acceptable for submission. If no response is received within a certain time frame, we will proceed with the submission process. While the notable Japanese collections of North America thrives on crowdsourcing and self-submitted data from individual libraries, we understand the challenges involved with competing priorities and demands on our time, and we hope to assist when and where it is possible. This is why we also send ongoing reminders to keep the information up to date. Every change in job status, contact information, and even digital access status of the collection has an impact on the quality of the database, and we are aiming for a long and sustainable future. As our collections and strategies for promotion evolve, so too will the notable Japanese collections dashboard. It is a work in progress, much like our collections, And in that sense, it will never be complete or finished. We look forward to your questions and feedback at the end of the session. And always, we welcome new submissions to the database. Thank you.
We have time for a few questions, I think, unless everyone is really starving. But I think we still have time for some questions. Yes, Peter.
I think I can speak loudly enough.
No, but the online, there are online participants.
We have Rebecca here as well. Should we invite Rebecca as well?
Well,
You're good.
why not? Yes, why not?
Okay. So if someone has questions for Rebecca, please go ahead.
Thank you, Peter Kornitsky. That was a very interesting presentation. I confess I didn't know about this website, and I'm very glad to have learned about it. I wanted to ask if you're also including non-academic institutions like the US Naval Academy at Annapolis, for example, which I know has an interesting collection. And there is in Washington, the National Medical Center, which has a large number of Japanese medical books, which isn't on your database yet. But these are the kind of places that you probably wouldn't be involved in NCC and really outside the normal horizon of US academics, but actually have extremely valuable information, both as old books, but also as material relating to early US-Japanese relations. So are these sort of things going to be, institutions going to be included as well?
Yes, definitely. We're really excited. And actually, if you could name those two collections again, I mean, that would actually lend itself well to a new theme in science and technology, which I think we've considered. And I think that's one of the things that we take most seriously is the opportunity to excavate collections that aren't necessarily represented by someone working or paid professionally to do so.
Next question.
Hi, thanks so much for introducing this this resource. I was also not aware of it, so I'm very happy that you did. I have a kind of question about how specifically it works. So what you showed was that it had all the collection names and the short description. Does it also have, and you said it doesn't have any digitized images, etc., but does it have, for instance, the separate titles of books that they have? Is that something you can search via your website? And can you also search, for example, how to, if not, how to find specific titles? Because some libraries, have them in their OPAC, in their online. Others don't. Others have it printed. In Europe, there's a lot of printed catalogs of these collections. So is that kind of information included?
Yeah, so you can definitely browse collection. We have only 219 collections so far. You can just scroll down and see the information. Yeah, like we said, we have the status of digital access, language, time period, and format. And we have a sort of like main title of the collection, and we have detailed description of the title. We ask librarians or curators to, how to describe the collections. Definitely it's helpful to include as much information as possible so that it's more findable. We also have a field for URLs. Unless the description include that title, no.
Thank you. Any other question also about the previous presentation? There's still a question. I think everybody Very tired, or at least hankering for food. So let's call it a morning. Thank you very much for the presentation.